A very good afternoon to all of you. I welcome you all to ICF Travel Series Break Free, session number 34. And today's speaker is Kanchan Dhar. She is a copy editor. That's something I'm very happy about. Finally, like copy editors getting their place in the spotlight, in the limelight, and we have 10 participants as of now. Maybe some will join later, but I can see some regular participants. Kaniz, Devanand Paul, Bhavya Chauhan is a new participant. She has been joining us for the last couple of weeks. Ananya Prasad, first session for her. Jyotirma is a regular. Murugraj, our technical coordinator. Nirja is joining us, like she prepares the flyers, Kanchan, so that's information for you. The flyers that are prepared for our series, Nirja
Thank you so
design,
much.
yeah,
They were beautiful.
Nirja designs them, and the audio visual are design like they are created by Divya Munjal. She has not joined us yet. So the title of the session is like the road to freedom is a Himalayan trek. So that's a very interesting, exciting title. And as far as Kanchan's introduction goes, I think I will leave it to Kanchan so that she can tell us more about herself and her work. She has done a lot of commendable work, like I was reading the bio. A lot of books have come out last year and this year, and then she plans to launch a publishing platform also. So that's these are things that are of interest to editors. And the series which we started last year in October, which focused on travel. So the initial part of today's session will be on travel, and Kanchan will be talking about it. So over to you, Kanchan, first for the bio and then for the presentation.
Thank you so much, Vivek. I'm very grateful I have this opportunity today to talk about my Himalayan experiences. My name is Kanchan Dhar, and I'm from Odisha and Pondicherry. So even though I was born here in Odisha and I grew up here, I add Pondicherry to my identity as well because I've spent a significant amount, a significant time of my life there, and my office is located there. All my work conducts out of Pondicherry. I am a copy editor by profession. That was not the planning. I wanted, after my master's in 2016, I wanted to go for my PhD, and somehow it did not happen due to certain reasons. And I got into this company. Around Chennai and Pondicherry, we have a lot of companies that provide editorial services. And thinking that okay, it's going to be just for the time being, I took up a job there, and 5 years now, I happen to be a professional copy editor. And thankfully, I love my job now. I didn't love it initially, but then I do it now. And it took me a lot more time to realize that I actually want to be a writer first, and then everything else. The academic me, the editor me, has to come later. I am a writer first, and that's how I introduce myself to people. I'm a writer, and then an editor, a copy editor. And thankfully, in the past 2 years, I've managed to publish a bit. I have a small scatter of publications. I have contributed to anthologies in India and abroad, and I've done some book reviews and stuff. I've forwarded poetry volumes, and after spending on and off about 9 months in the Himalaya between 2019 and 2020, a shift happened in my life, and I know that I want to dedicate my life more towards it, towards the mountain and towards the mountains, and build a legacy here, which is why I plan to start a publishing platform soon, and I'll be talking about it in the presentation. So I think I can start with the presentation now. The title of the presentation is The Road to Freedom is a Himalayan Trek. Well, it's actually the title of an article that I wrote recently and has been accepted for publication in an international journal. It was only very recent that I came to realize that my life has, as such, has been like a Himalayan trek. And I spent 9 months in the mountains from September 2019 to June 2020. So that includes 3 months of the lockdown. And it wasn't a random decision to travel the mountains. It happened because of a reason. Because back in 2019, I was broken, mentally broken. I started this journey as a broken woman. I was emotionally and mentally totally broken. My relationships were broken. My finances were broken. My career was broken. And I didn't know what I was doing with myself, with my life. And much later, I penned down my experiences with the mountains. When we think of rocks, uh, people immediately jump to the concept obstacles. When we think of pressure, burden, heaviness, again, it's related to something very negative. That's exactly how I felt in 2019. But then I gave those feelings a shape over time, and that's how I went to the mountains. Months later, this is how I wrote about it. I would like to read out something. So this was my experience in 2019. For months, it felt like rocks, huge rocks had settled beneath my skin, invisible rocks thumping on my innocent chest, like boulders were clogged in my gut and choking my breath. I guess that's how depression feels like, people who go through it. And I let the pain take its sweet time and flood my veins. And when the shores were buried enough and I felt done enough, my heart braved. And like an old potter, recollecting her forgotten trade, I gave these rocks a broken but unmissable shape, that of a mountain. It literally was like, the image emerged in my head, and I knew I had to go for it. But it wasn't easy. So throughout the presentation, I would be in bits and pieces talking about how I managed my money and stay in everything. Money was bleak back then, and I didn't know how I was going to do it. So my first trip, but then when you desire something really desperately, help comes to you. It's like Harry Potter. That's what happened to me. My first trip to the Himalaya was paid by the government of India, and I'll let you know how. The travels happened in three separate phases. The first phase included a visit to Uttarakhand and a visit to Himachal. And in the second phase, I spent a lot of time in the Kumaon region of Uttarakhand. And in the third phase, it was all about finding and visiting and experiencing the Ganga. So I'll begin with the first phase. And even though it is really the Shimla trip that funded my flight from Orissa to the Himalaya, I'm going to talk about another place first. I'm going to talk about Tallaramgarh, which is in Nainital district in Uttarakhand. So my flight was paid by the government of India because I got selected for an international conference which was happening at the IIAS Shimla, and I adjusted the dates in such a way that paying one way, I got to visit Tallaramgarh in Uttarakhand, where I actually attended an international poetry festival. I was an invited guest there. And from there on, I took a bus to Himachal. And my return flight, again, was also covered by the government. And that is how, the first trip was covered. So I'm going to take you first to Tallaramgarh. So this little place is called Tallaramgarh. This is a hamlet in Nainital district. It appears to be secluded from the rest of the world. And this mountain here in this picture is actually home to a branch of Shirvinda Ashram, and the ashram here is called Madhuban. Now, like I said, I have spent a good amount of time in Pondicherry, and Pondicherry is known for Shirvinda Ashram. The ashram has many branches across the Himalaya, and this is one of their branches in Ramgarh. This particular branch is called Madhuban. It's at a height of 5,000 feet above sea level. And I went there to attend a literary festival called Wings of Spirit, which was curated by a friend, Gayatri Majumdar, who is a poet and publisher from Pondicherry, and by Dr. Sahadev Kumar, who is a very senior academic and travel enthusiast from Toronto. So I just trusted my guts. It was, I hadn't been in touch with Gayatri around that time, in the sense not too close, but I was lucky enough to get an invite to the festival, and that's where I went. This was the flyer that was printed, and it was for the first time that I was part of such a such a beautiful group. And this is the moment when I started counting my blessings. I had never imagined in my life. I'd been writing for many years, but I had never imagined that I would actually be reading out my poems high up in these mountains in the Himalaya, with such a fantastic audience around me. Quite a blessing. This is Madhuban, and this is how the entrance appears. And it's only an ashram namesake because basically it is really a garden of flowers. That's how I think. It is always in glory. You'll find Madhuban in full bloom in every season of the year, and it houses a small community of responsible individuals who live sustainably in harmony with nature. And life in the ashram is very simple, rural, peaceful, and at its best. And they have a kitchen, they bake their own bread, they make their own jams, and the gardeners tend to the flowers like babies, and you can hear birds singing all the time. Early in the morning, you get up to the winter, and you will see flocks of parrots flinging from one oak tree to the other. That's how it is in Madhuban, and the air is fresh and green, and that's how life was there. During my first visit, it was for about 7-8 days. These are passion flowers there. It was the month of September, and they also have a little lotus garden. And this particular this lotus pond has a bench right in front of it, and they call this area Kamal Kutir. This is how I had my first meal at Madhuban, at Shirvinda Ashram. And I call this the world's best dining table because nothing moves here except the clouds and the wind. And this visual is just glorious to the soul. Only they can know who have been to this place. Right behind me here is the kitchen, is the dining area, and then the kitchen. And there are benches spread out on the front, and you can sit here and have your meal just watching the mountains, the valleys. It is not a very narrow valley. It is fine. And then this was the view from my balcony, from the balcony of my room where I was staying. I was a guest there, so I was provided with a very good room. I had to pay a small amount, and we engaged in a lot of literary activities. But I guess, at the end of the day, when we would come back to our rooms, this would be the best moments, standing in the balcony and just, watching the clouds descend down the valley. September was indeed beautiful. So this particular moment that's captured here, it's called Shramdan. Shramdan means service. So when you're at the ashram, you have to provide service, at least for a few minutes every day. You could go and tend to the flowers in the garden, or you could help out in the kitchen. We did some kitchen work. And you can see this little man in white kurta was carrying logs of wood. He's actually a publisher, a known publisher from Delhi. And these are all friends and poets here. We had book releases there, and all the activities were planned and spanned over 7 8 days. And here I am waiting for my turn to read my poems, then unpublished. At least now I have some of them published. The person you see sitting in front of me, the one with the cap, that's Dr. Sahadev Kumar from Toronto. He was one of the curators of the festival. And then this was a very chilly night. This is midnight and a full moon night, and this very chilly night was warmed with local Kumaoni musicians who had come for us, and they sang local songs, Kumaoni songs, and they're indeed very beautiful. The man who is seen to the fire here, um, he's a local poet of Uttarakhand. His name is Himanshu. Himanshu Bhaiya is a local poet of Uttarakhand, and the people you see behind them, they're the local musicians. And yes, we trekked. I Later when I scanned through these pictures, I was shocked to see myself, just like this, holding a stick in my hand, navigating mountain terrains. And this was the crew that went for the trek. There's a little river down in the valley, and you have to climb down the mountain. There's no straight road. You literally have to climb down the mountain to reach the river, and it is a beautiful path. It was a small trek, but wonderful. We also during our walks, we interacted with locals. Life there is not simple. It is precocious. It is difficult. Uh, there's no accessibility. I saw children walk 2 to 3 hours each day, climb up and down the mountains to go to school, and that's a daily chore for them, and they do it. And yet, the locals there, they're so happy, and they're so good. They were really good to me. This little fella, his name is Tipu. He used to be the resident dog of Madhuban. I came back for a second visit in November, and halfway, uh, when I was just about to reach the ashram, it suddenly struck me that this time I had not bought biscuits and snacks for little Tipu. And then I thought, yeah, okay, it's all right. I'll go and meet him anyway. I have 4 dogs myself, so I'm very fond of animals. And then when I reached the ashram, I was very upset to find out that Tipu had died. He got bitten by a wolf, and then he never recovered. So yes, such things happened there too. Uh, Here, notable musicians had come down all the way from Nainital town, and this was a night spent listening to the songs of Meera and Kabir and Nanak. And again, this was a moment when I counted my blessing, because I know how the amount of misery I was in a few months ago, and suddenly I found myself sitting 5,000 feet high up in the mountains and listening. I found myself listening to this beautiful yogic like man here singing Kabir, and it was just magical to the senses. And those are moments that I would never forget. And then this was on the last day. My friend Harry, she clicked this picture, and then that's how the 1 week, the first My first time in Madhuban, and that's how it ended there. This was the last day there. And then I left for Shimla. Shimla was, well, very much of a surprise. So, it really happens that when you desire something with all your heart and intent, the universe really does conspire to manifest it. And it is because of IIAS that I could really begin my journey to the mountains. So, um, one morning in July 2019, I decided that, all right, it's okay if things didn't work out. I can still be an academic if I couldn't go to the university. And I took out all my old books and pages, and you know, I went through them, and I went online and started Googling, and suddenly an ad popped up. I don't know where I found it, and I just found an advertisement, which was a call for papers. It was a call for an international conference to be held at the IIAS Shimla, and the topic was not any close to my research field, but then what I got out of that ad was, okay, this is academics and this is mountains. I don't know why. I just knew I was going there. And it also said that they'll be giving travel allowance, flight will be paid for. And I knew that's it. I'm going there. And I took a week and I did some studies. I made an application and I got selected. That's it. And it was just fantastic. Shimla called next. And every time now I think of these lanes, these roads that lead to the main mansion of the IIAs. All I can think of is silence. The silence that I experienced there. Silence appeared to me as a real character. Silence that observes, your footsteps as you walk these mountain paths, but doesn't interfere. And once you're gone, silence goes back to minding its own business. That's how my interaction was with silence on these lonely paths. And this was the day of the conference. I was nervous, very nervous, but then it went well. IIAs today is my personal Indian variety of Hogwarts, I would say, because that's how beautiful it is. It is a Victorian style mansion which was built by the British, and then post independence, the mansion is now being used for research purposes. Very senior academics go to the IIAS for studies. This is our group there. This is a group picture from our conference, and I'm grateful that the picture, the paper that I presented at this conference actually it has been accepted for publication in a Routledge volume. I began my career as a copy editor with Routledge, with TNF. Back then, 5 years ago, I never imagined that I would become a Routledge author myself. So that's how that's the kind of blessings the Himalaya, the mountains bestowed on me. My sister accompanied me to Shimla, and it was indeed wonderful. We roamed around the streets, and it was September, yes, and it was just a magical, slurping ice creams under the fog and the mist. It was just beautiful. This is a bookstore. I went to this particular spot of the mall road twice, and I never saw its doors open. No one went there, no one came here, nothing. It just remained shut. And I didn't know what happened here. I really wanted to go inside because it says the store has antiques. And months later, I came across this book called Bells of Shangri-La by Parimal Bhattacharya. And in the first chapter itself, he gives a very vivid description of the insides of this bookstore. Now, any book lover, I'm telling you, it's alluring. If you're going to Shimla anytime post-COVID, don't go now. Make sure that you go to this bookstore. It is supposedly brilliant inside. And I made some random clicks This is my way of connecting with the locale, connecting not just with people but also with animals, because uh, they too inhabit them very much. And mountain dogs are brilliant. You would love to pet them. And this is how Shimla ended. Shimla indeed has an air of mysticism. You know, the old world colonial charm still pervades into its every stone and tree. And um, and I just, with these pictures, I wanted Shimla to materialize in my heart and mind forever. It is still an enigma, and I hope we can, go back. I hope I can go back someday. And then I was back home, and my time spent in Madhuban was miraculous. But holidaying in the mountains is expensive. Luckily, my first trip, the travel for my first trip was paid by the government. I was given free accommodation at the IIAS. I was given free food, and I didn't have to worry at all. Um I, I had to think of something for my second trip, so I decided to go back to Madhuban and volunteer for a month. So it was a bit difficult because I could not take leave from my office. So I had to manage my job, which is a full 9 to 6 job. And then I resolved to be a volunteer at the ashram for a month. That would enable me to live in the mountains for a month. I thought, if not, it's okay if I cannot go to the other places, to other fanciful places. At least I still get to be in the company of the mountains. So that's what mattered. And if I'm volunteering there, I don't have to pay anything, and I would be given food and accommodation in return. So it seemed like a very good deal for me. So before leaving Ramgarh, Tala Ramgarh, in my first trip, I had already signed up. I had signed up and committed that I would come back as a volunteer. And I did the very next month. So I was back in Madhuban. This is how Madhuban greeted me in October. In between, I also made a trip to Mussoorie. In these 9 months, I made 2 trips to Mussoorie, but then I didn't do anything special. I wouldn't be referring to Mussoorie because we've all been there. So yes, this is how Madhuban treated me in October. It was, the winter chills were really settling down slow by slow, and the ivy that covered its walls, the ashram's boundaries, it was slowly changing its color. It was no more green, and that's how beautiful it was. But this time, I came to Madhuban not as a guest but as a volunteer. So I had tons of things to do. It was a life-changing experience for me. The image that you see here is from a teacher's training class. So Shirvinda Ashram has something called the Innovative Teachers Training Course, and it is an initiative which was started by the ashram to train young minds as teachers of integral education. Now, Sri Aurobindo always laid a lot of emphasis on integral education, the traditional education system, education that's practiced today in schools and colleges. That's not integral. Integral education is more individual in its system. The child is allowed to take their own course through learning. And these teachers here are being trained to become teachers of integral education. The idea is that when you train local women, train them to become teachers, it means you are basically you're training the local youth so that they remain interested in teaching as a profession. It is also to provide them jobs. The ashram has schools all over the country, and basically after this training, a training of 2 years, all these girls will have possibilities, will have chances to work as a teacher in Sri Aurobindo Ashram schools. And many of these girls, they just came back to Uttarakhand after completing their training in Delhi. So I'm still in touch with them. And this is also to stop the youth from leaving their villages. It is a big problem in the mountains today. The locals are abandoning their life, their homes, and they are migrating to the cities in search of urban jobs. This is also intended to help to retain the youth within the community so that they can stay within the community and contribute towards it and grow themselves too. The girls that you see here, as of now, this particular group, there are 12 girls here, aged 18 to 26. A few of them are also married and they have kids. And they come from some 6 or 7 different villages surrounding Ramgarh block. And these girls would get up early in the morning, 6 in the morning, to catch a bus to the ashram. That's how hard they worked there. The training, the ashram also has a school associated with it called Sadasuk, which translates to eternal happiness, and that's where all the training used to happen. This is a group photograph of the girls that I had clicked, and they're my friends now. And this you see 12 dolls here, 12 dolls in different colors. I received these dolls as a gift in the ashram. Again, this is one of the highlights of my Himalayan experience. So, Shirvinda Ashram, if you, think of the ashram, it's not just Shirvinda, there's also the mother, who's, um, there's mother and there's Sri Aurobindo ashram. I think I'm just giving a very basic introduction to the ashram and Pondicherry. There are 2 people there, and the mother during her lifetime always paid emphasis to 12 important human qualities. Each quality represented a certain color, and here you have those 12 qualities in the shape of 12 dolls. Now these dolls have a history here. So in 2004, so these dolls have a name. They're called Tsunamika. These are Tsunamika dolls. They're handmade by an organization called Upasana in Auroville. So in 2004, when tsunami struck the coasts of India, lakhs of people were affected. And at that time, Upasana members, they worked with some 600 women from the coasts to help them emerge out of their trauma. So they engaged them in the art of doll making. And that's how Tsunamika was born. This little, not so striking doll actually helped those women divert their minds. And that is how they came out of their trauma eventually. These dolls over the years became actually a rage across the country. And today, as of now, almost 6 million such dolls have been sold in about 80 countries of the world. So this doll is also considered a stereotype of the mother from the ashram. And this doll, because the Tsunamika doll was created out of the trauma that resulted because of the tsunami. Tsunamika is also considered the voice of the ocean. So it is actually, the doll actually came as a relief. There's a great story behind it. And I received these dolls as gifts. Here you can see that, the teachers training program that they have here, it includes all kinds of physical activity. Here they're playing basketball, and here's my friend Veronique, who's an artist and entrepreneur from Paris. She engaged the girls in an arts class, and I assisted her with these classes. I volunteered as a translator, and I also one-to-one worked with the girls here and helped them get through their art projects. And the classes were significant, very significant, because these art classes spanned over several days. And while their first project was writing out their own name and designing it, their very last project was visualizing their future as a teacher. So through art, Veronique took these girls through a process of self-realization, connecting with one's identity. You begin with your name, and you then envision who you are and who you want to be in the future. And I'm grateful to have been a part of this process. These are some of the pictures from the art classes. So that is how I spent my time there in the ashram as a volunteer. I would get up early in the morning and finish off some of my work and send off the files by 9:30, and then literally run down, walk down a mountain to the school, because the school is at the foot of the little hill. I have to literally walk down a mountain and run to the school, because Veronica would be there waiting with all the girls. I would always be the last one to arrive, but I was not the first one to leave. Thankfully, we had a great time together there. Um, they also, the girls also did some gardening. They were taught how to pot a plant. It is because as a teacher you are supposed to know how to build a garden, because when you build a garden it enhances your sensitivity. You get to become more attuned to nature. Now what was I doing here? Now my job as a volunteer was to document as well all these activities, and at the end, after my term was over, I had to write uh, some very lengthy reports on these activities, and I had to provide them to the manager of Madhuban. That is how that is how I worked so closely with these girls, and I also happened to interview them, excerpts of which I will be producing in the book that I'm compiling based on these experiences. This was just 2 days before I left Madhuban. You know, 2 days before my time as a volunteer ended there. I was there for a month. This is a picture with the girls, with the mountains in the backdrop. This is end of November now. This is, I think, 29th or 30th of November. I remember the dates. I also taught English there to the workers who worked in the fields and the kitchen, and there were many who were supposed to come to the class, but only three joined. Not because they wanted to learn English, but because I had managed to establish, you know, a decent rapport with them. These boys in bone breaking cold worked in the fields from morning till evening, and at 7 in the evening nobody wanted to get out of their sleeping bags, their rooms, and walk half a mile and come to this conference room to learn some English, which they were eventually going to forget, of course. Because I was there for only a brief period. These in spoken English classes don't happen all the time. But then, so not all of them came, but yes, I had three regular students from left to right. There's Sadhu on the left. In the center, that's Ajit, and then on the right, it's Ratikant. So these were my students, and I used to spend my evenings with them, teaching them spoken English. And this is how I prepared. I also had to prepare daily activity reports. So basically, there are not many women who work there. Okay, mostly it's the men who handle the kitchen, the cowshed, the construction work, the gardening, and I had to follow them at the end of the day, just to to get the information to put on the report. And they were not very indulging, and it was really tough to get all the report, to get all the data down for the report, and I had to do this on a daily basis. So this is one of the daily reports that I prepared. And yes, I was quite a volunteer there for the 1 month. I not only spent time with the mountains. I'm happy that I participated in the ashrams activities. This is Subhash Bhaiya. He took us to treks. He took us on treks locally, and yes, he is a living yogi in the Himalaya. I have met yogis in the Himalaya, and yogis today do not proper yogis do not wear orange and meditate on some mountain top. As per Shirvinda's teachings, you are born on this world. If you're born on this earth, you're supposed to be a part of it. You cannot just renounce it. That's not practical anymore. You have to engage with its materiality and emerge out of it as a yogi. Subhash Bhaiya is one such person here. He's a living yogi. and he's a fantastic person. He lives in the he lives there in the ashram on the mountains, and he takes people on treks locally. A rainbow literally hit my head on the riverbank. This picture was clicked by Veronique. Could could I take a break for just 10 seconds? I'll be back. Just an
Yes.
emergency. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no
I'll
problem.
just be back. Yes.
Sure.
Well, okay. So I didn't put off my audio, so I guess everyone heard it. Yes, this picture was taken during one of our local treks. I literally slept off on the riverbank, and my friend Veronique took this picture. I don't know if it was the reflection of the sunlight, striking across the water surface. I don't know what happened there, between these rocks. But yes, a rainbow hit my head. And this is Veronique and um, Ajit preparing salad in the kitchen with herbs plucked straight from the ashram's garden. And yes, we cooked there too. We cooked our meals too. And then, um 30th of November, I woke up to find the ashram like this, hail everywhere. I opened my door and it appeared like it had snowed. And the very next day, I was supposed to leave for a road trip for a few days, and it had been raining bizarre. It had been raining crazy, but this and what I had most feared had happened. My first conclusion was that it had already snowed, but then no, this was just hail. Uh, and I came out and walked to the dining hall, and news came that it had snowed by then. It was 30th of November, 1st December. It had already snowed in Mukteishwar and some higher regions. But yeah, and there was a possibility that it would start snowing in Ramkat as well. Thankfully, it did not happen. I had never witnessed such beauty in my entire life. It wasn't snow really in Ramgarh, then it was just hail, but lots of hail drenching trees, the branches, the garden, everywhere. It was so misty. And I was really sad. I was happy about what I was seeing, but I was sad thinking that I won't be able to go on the road trip. Now, how did I plan a road trip? I spent a month volunteering in the ashram. I didn't do anything other than, volunteer here. In return, I was given food and accommodation, which means I had I had made no expenditures that particular month. The local shops were um, a mountain walk away. Like, you have to literally walk down a mountain and walk further ahead to go to the local shops if you wanted to buy anything. No expenditures were made. I managed to save 1 month's salary, and with that I planned my road trips ahead to visit the nearby places. I didn't want to miss out on those, and I was a little upset, thinking, what if I cannot go? And then the person who manages the ashram here, Dr. Anju Khanna, she said to me, no matter what happens, Kanchan, you have to remember that the sunshine is in you. This is one of the things that I learned in the mountains, that no matter what happens in the exterior world, no matter the storm, the sunshine is actually here. And if I want, I can really go on the trip. And I did. Uh, this is a little shrine near the ashram, just a picture that I wanted to show. And this was, winter had started setting in, and this is the dried cherry blossom branch. And this is how my room looked on the last day when I was packing up. I'm a very neat person, but I have no idea why my room looked like this. Just 2 hours before I had to catch my train back to Delhi. And this is not a hotel, this is an ashram. So you have to clean up every nook and corner, and you have to wash every utensil and send it back to the kitchen. It has to be tidy and neat as it was when you entered it. And I did all that. And I will talk about the places that I visited during my road trips a little later. But after spending, I spent a month in Madhuban as a volunteer. And then I went to Nainital Ashram branch. The Shirvinda Ashram branch in Nainital is called One Nivas. And they had organized a camp there for 10 days. And yes, I went there too as a volunteer. I didn't have the money to join the program as a guest, and my status as a volunteer allowed me to be a part of the program. Yes, that's how I did it. And these are my first visuals of Nainital. In the past, the name Nainital, it always reminded me of Jim Corbett, and it is basically a holiday spot, and it is believed that this little hill station was discovered by the British in 1841. If you read Jane Clay's book Nainital, he claims that the little hill station was discovered by the British. And from the colonizers' perspective, it is as if these places never existed before the English came here. But that's not true. If you look at the history of the temples there, those histories go back 700, 800 years, 1,000 years, even 2,000 years. Nainital is called Nainital for a reason. Nainital has this famous Naina Devi's temple. Now, do you know we have Shakti Peeths in India? So, as per the myth, when Sati self-immolated and Shiva held her, charred body and performed the tandav, because of the force of his body movements, Sati's different body parts got scattered all across the earth, and wherever a part fell, the place came to be revered in as per our culture. And on every such spot today stands a temple. In this particular spot, it is believed that the eye of Sati had fallen. Now, I cannot remember if it was the left eye or the right eye, but one of those eyes had fallen here. And Naina means eye. And that is how, because of that particular history, this place is called Nainital. Nain again means eyes. So if you look at the history of this place, it's as old as one can imagine. It goes back to our gods and goddesses. So how can the British just claim that they discovered Nainital somewhere in the in the 1800s? That's not true. The camp was for about 10 days, and every morning we would get up and go for this this class. It was called. Sorry.
Jim. I'm sorry, the mic went on, and I was talking to my wife, who is also attending your talk. So we were just discussing about Nainital, but I failed to notice that the mic went on, and my apologies to everyone.
No problem. Yes, so this particular session was called Awareness Through Body, and I would get up early in the morning in winter and come for this. I not only attended, my job was also to document the program. I had to produce a 20-page length of document. That was my job here as a volunteer, to document the entire camp. And we danced here to the tunes of Om Mani Padme Hum. The whole camp was very yogic in its essence. It was called Oneness Camp, and the participants here had come from different parts of the country and even from abroad. We were all strangers to each other on the first day, but then by the end of it, we had literally become one. the purpose of the camp was to, to connect with one another, to feel the oneness. We are not separate from one another. It is the same energy that connects all of us. So this is how, I guess, my Himalayan experiences. This is how separate me from the bigger crowd, because it wasn't conquest oriented to begin with. My Himalayan experiences have been yogic in their nature and very meditative. And I'm very grateful and I feel very lucky about it. And these were, sessions which were meant, these were meant for self-reflection. And each one of us participated in it. We had mentors who had come from Sweden, from Canada, and there were people from Africa, from Ethiopia, but currently they're residing in Orville. And we were all, it was a very global group and it was a wonderful experience here. And we participated in a lot of art activities. We created art based on certain certain educational ideas of Sri Aurobindo, and it was great. And we also did some art therapy, and my painting is also here in the group. And we trekked. Yes, here two treks happened, and there were 3 treks that were planned. And of these, I missed 2 because I wanted to, walk down the mountain and I wanted to explore Nainital town on my own. I didn't want to do that in the group, so I missed the first 2 treks. And this was the 3rd trek. I clicked this picture on my way. This particular trek was special because we walked from Nainital all the way to Kanchan. Kanchan is a very popular spot in Kumaon. It is actually world famous. Almost every other world known luminary has visited Kanchan of Neem Karoli Baba, and this ashram is just an hour away from Ramgarh. But and this trek route from Nainital to Kanchan is very famous. So initially, I was very afraid about it because some locals had warned me about wild animals, and some of my companions were also very skeptic if I could do this trek or not, because I had skipped the previous 2 treks, and they assumed that because I had not done the previous treks, and also because I happened to be a little fat, as people say, it wasn't for me. That was the general conclusion of the public. But then I did it anyway. And that is how fun that trek was. The man you see standing next to me, I think his name is Shankaranda. So he was our trek lead. Someone said to me, Kanchan, if you're so scared, why don't you just go and check with Dada just to make sure if it's going to be okay or not. And then one of our coordinators there warned me, and then he said, okay, look, Kanchan, don't you dare go and ask Shankaranda if this trek is going to be safe or not, because apparently Shankaranda has been leading this trek for 4 times a year, and for the past 20 years. This was his 88th time through that 80th time, not 80th. This was his 80th time through that route. So he would be offended if you ask him so. I didn't anyway. I trusted him. And it was the most beautiful walk ever, because there were amazing vistas of snow-capped peaks. And we plucked oranges from orchards and ate them. We walked through pine forests and listened to some unknown waterfalls gurgling far away in the hills. And then we finally arrived in Kanchan. This is how the pine forests look like. And we started at 8 in the morning and arrived Kanchan by 3, 4 in the evening, late afternoon. We were a slow group. That's how we trekked. And this is how Kanchan looks like. This is Neem Karoli Baba's ashram. And I've been to Kanchan 3 times. Neem Karoli Baba used to be, he was a great healer, and you must go. You must really go there and experience the peace there. It's a beautiful place, nestled, between the Himalayas. It is a beautiful place. Then I went to Mukteishwar. I made 2 trips to Mukteishwar. One was with my poets group. This place is called Mystic Inn, and it is basically a garden, and the poets here are gathered listening to the owner tell some stories. The owner here, I'm forgetting her name. She's a 75-year-old Punjabi lady, and is one hell of a woman, and she manages this huge inn single-handedly. She's the leader here, and it was amazing interacting with her. We spent a really good day there. And yes, this is another group picture. And then much later I made a solo trip to Mukteishwar. This is me sitting high up on the rocks there, and my guide there told me something very interesting. He explained to me why temples happen to exist high up on the mountains. It is because they're not supposed to be an easy access. The god that resides in these temples, uh, eh, he's sacred. He or she, they're sacred, and you are not supposed to have easy access to them. It is supposed to be a very, it is supposed to be a topsy-turvy walk up the hill, and not a plain route. Also, when you walk up the hill, this was his explanation. When you walk up the hill, you have to leave everything behind. You have to let go of all the cares and frets of the world. All your focus has to be up on the mountain, to that deity that resides on the top. And as you walk up to the deity, you let go of everything. When you let go of everything, you become lighthearted. And then it's just you and the divine. And that's how you trek the mountain. That's why I say that the road to freedom is a Himalayan trek, because you cannot achieve freedom if you carry too much of burden and fevers and frets of the world. You have to let go. You have to let go of a lot in your life, to find that peace. And that is how a Himalayan trek is. That is how your life is supposed to be. Let go of what you don't need. You only need the basics, the items that you need to survive, and only then you can trek up and find your peace. This is the Mukteishwar temple. The structure that you see here is very recent, but then the history of the spot goes back to the Mahabharata. Apparently, the Pandav brothers performed tapasya here to achieve mukti. Mukti means liberation, and that's how this place has come to be known as Mukteishwar. That's how the history goes. I also went to Almora, and they say that people go to Almora for only one thing. If you look at literary history, so many people, have gone to Almora basically to get high. There's hash available in enough quantity there. But then I found something fantastic there. The pictures here that you see there of the Bolu Devta Mandir. And Bolu Devta there in Almora is the god of justice. He wasn't a real god. About 1,000 years ago, he was a born human, a prince. But then, because he was so just and so good in his nature, people transformed his identity into that of a deity. And the million bells and petitions, these letters are actually petitions that you see here. They actually represent the Pahadi community's unquestionable faith in their god, this particular god who they consider their protector and their defender. So, if I have to narrate my experience when I walked through, these alleys, when I entered the temple's sacred space, I basically felt tremors in my body because the energy was that high. And I realized that the mountains are so much more than just, I guess, Facebook trending spots, social media trending spots, because that is how people have started treating the mountains as. Uh, uh, Images are emerging from Masuri and Nainital now, and people are busy revenge traveling. That's not how you can treat them. You cannot discuss the Himalaya without considering the divinity that's associated with it. The Himalaya is a living, breathing entity, and you have to keep that in full consideration when you're walking Himalayan paths. And then I went to Jageshwar. Stories about the skeleton stories about so many of these Shiva temples. The stories are the same, that Shiva and Parvati, after their marriage, they traveled across the Himalaya, and they would stop at many different spots, and wherever they would halt the night, before they left early next morning, a temple would have emerged there. That's how the story goes. Before the crack of dawn, a temple would have emerged there. And so many Shiva temples across the Himalaya, they have this history. It is sad that Jageshwar is a big temple complex. It's about 2,000 years old, but sadly, so many of these temples do not have idols. When I inquired, I came to know that originally these idols were made of ashtadhatu. It means these idols were made of a combination of 8 precious elements, which made them very precious, priceless actually. And so many of them were stolen years ago. And whatever remained have now been stationed inside a little museum that sticks to the temple complex. The little temples that you see here, they are all idol-less. They're just skeletons. And I have some nice pictures here. Then my stay in Kausani was very short. People go to Kausani basically for the views, and I did the same. Nothing more than that. And then there was Rani Khet, another beautiful spot. I wish someday to have a home there. Do let me know if it gets too late. I'm not sure how much time do I really have.
Kanchan, it's going fine. You can just let us know how many slides are left, because there we want the participants also to interact with you, ask their queries and questions.
Okay, I'll hurry up then. Yes, so this is Jhula Devi's temple in Rani Khet, and the tradition of tying a bell here. Once a wish is fulfilled, it goes the same. And then I went to the temple complex of Baijnath, which is on the banks of, I think it is Gomti, yes. And again, you see idol-less temples. It's the same story. The idols that remain here are housed in this little temple in the complex, and the doors are kept secured all the time. And then I also visited Katarmal in Almora, which is a sun temple. The third trip was all about finding the Ganga, experiencing the Ganga. That was the point of it. And Masuri happened in this phase as well. So I'm skipping Masuri. We all know what's there. Most of us have been there. So I'm skipping Masuri altogether. And then obviously I went to Rishikesh. It was my first time there. And this moment is my first feel of the Ganga. This is a snap of Ram Jhula. My time in Rishikesh was precious. I had never experienced such things before. This is from Ganga Aarti. Ganga for us, for people at large, Ganga is just a river. But Ganga in Rishikesh is a living, breathing entity. She's a goddess, and that's how she's treated there. This is a little girl called Pooja, whom I met there, and this particular place is called Rani Mandir. Pooja lives somewhere here, and I clicked this picture in the night time, met her in the daytime, and she took me, she took me high up to the building to a little room where she said, there lives a churel who eats up little kids. So she made up quite an interesting story. Now I'll tell you what was the name of that churel. She told me, the movie Bulbul, right? Bulbul was released in late 2020. This is early 2020, right before lockdown. Bulbul was not released then, and this little girl took me to a room where a churel called Bulbul lived, and she would eat up little kids. It was not very scary, interesting, yes. But then, yes, Rani Mandir. This is how Rani Mandir looked like at night under the moonlight. Scary. And this is a lot of temples in Rishikesh. They are newly constructed, and I also found that these temples have faulty constructions. But then they've been very intricately designed. This particular Ram Sita Dham, it has 17 floors, and some of them go deep below the ground. What you can see only 5 stories, okay, 5 layers of the temple, and then there are several more that go below. This is, I guess, my most beautiful moment in Rishikesh that I witnessed. This is somewhere close to Parmarth Niketan. The Shiva statue is very famous there. And yes, then there are, the many colors sites. You don't find Indians doing this here, but these are white people, people from abroad who come here, and they sing and they paint their faces and bathe themselves in the colors of Rishikesh, and that's how you see it. Color contrasts in Rishikesh. This is a very drizzly evening that I spent by the banks of Ganga. Some more pictures. And we also went to, this is another Shakti Peeth that's on a mountain top. We went here too. I'm skipping a few slides here. And then, yes, next was Haridwar. It's dirty. Really, it's very dirty. But the Ganga Aarti that I attended in Haridwar, literally, it made me cry. It was amazing. And then there was Dev-Prayag. If you know, Dev-Prayag is the meeting place of Alaknanda and Bhagirathi. It is, there are Panchaprayags, 5 meeting points of rivers in Uttarakhand. The lowest is Dev-Prayag. It's a very sacred spot. Alaknanda and Bhagirathi meet here, and it is from this spot that the 2 tributaries join and flow together as the Ganga. The Ganga enters the place at this particular spot. It's a very sacred spot because 2 very ancient rivers meet here. And that's me here. And this is a thunderous Bhagirathi here that I have captured. And then after my time here ended, after I visited the Ganga, I went to Dehradun for 5 days. I was supposed to be there for just 5 days, and then I was leaving again for Ramgarh to Madhuban for a month. But lockdown happened, and I got stuck there. It wasn't very pleasant, really, because for those 5 days, I had put up at a homestay. For those 5 days, the family was pretty nice to me. But after the lockdown, as the days, got extended one after the other, everyone at the guest house left, and I was the only remaining resident. Everything shut down. I couldn't go out. It was a state of constant panic that I cannot even describe. And it wasn't very pleasant to live with the family because they wouldn't leave a single opportunity to, scrap money out of my pockets. They would charge me for even, boiled potatoes, water, and every little thing possible. It was too much. I was safe there. I was safe with the family. I had no harm touching me, but it was mentally very, very torturous living with them because they didn't leave out a single opportunity to extract money out of me because I was the only resident there in their house for 3 straight months. I had to pay there for the first month. I paid on a daily basis. It was just too much. I started freelancing. My salary wasn't enough, and I started freelancing. And then I signed an agreement with them and rented up space for myself for the next 2 months. And yet it wasn't enough for them. Every day they would come up to me and make a request. They would want to add up something extra to increase the money that I have to pay to them. It doesn't matter. In the sense, I admit that I was safe, but it was not a very pleasant stay with them. Although the locality that I stayed in was very beautiful, this was the view from their terrace. These are the Shivalik Hills, and I sought my happiness in little things. For example, the many pictures of the Shivalik here, the many faces of the Shivalik. And then I remember I spent one particular afternoon listening to army songs on the radio. We have many battalions here in the country, and each regiment has its own anthem. And I listened, and it was a special program, and I spent one long afternoon listening to those songs. It made me feel very brave. And I remember another afternoon I watched a pair of eagles, swoop down and encircle a particular building. And I remember writing in my diary, these eagles had flown down from Missouri to take in a glimpse of Doon Valley. I listened to a lot of radio, and that helped me survive. And then finally in June, when flights started, I could come back home. It was both pain and pleasure, those 3 months in Dehradun, but yes, certainly worth an adventure. I mean, an adventure that I would always remember, because I had to deal with a lot. After I came back, I was in a state of mental breakdown, so bad that after a few months, I remember in late 2020, sometime in October, I was mildly suicidal. I was on the edge. I was in a bad shape. I think the 3 months the 3 months that I spent locked up in Dehradun affected me in ways that I could not even imagine. My separation from the mountains affected me in ways I could not imagine. And then I put my mind to other things, and that's how Himalayan Scripts emerged. Himalayan Scripts is the publishing platform that I intend to begin soon. I've been planning it for almost a year now. I started building on it last year. In July, a website is being built now. It's still in blueprint, and I'm dealing with technicalities, but I'm going to show the logo here. It is just a basic, some basic logo, and I put together some fanciful elements using website, and just to give this concept an identity. This is the first time I'm revealing the logo. The mandala that you see around the mountains, for me, that symbolizes the universe, and the Himalaya here is its center. I ended up asking myself, what do I want to do with it? I can't even go back to the mountains now. But that can't stop me from writing about it, from singing about it, and which I still do. The other thing that I wanted to do suddenly, that at that point I realized, is that I wanted to bring writings from the Himalaya to the fore. So Himalayan Scripts aims to, in the future, it aims to bring out, aims to publish writings from the Himalaya, about the Himalaya, both regional literatures and translations. In the mountains, I met poets who write in Hindi, but then they're fantastic literatures, but then no one knows them because they don't have translations. So one of the things that I want to be able to do through Himalayan Scripts is enable essential translations, because these literatures need to come to the fore. And a few months later, this is what I noted down for myself. My core purpose in life. You're supposed to have a core purpose. You're supposed to have a mission-oriented life. And even though for now it's just in words, but this is what I revolve my mind around. My core purpose is to help and protect, to help and preserve the Himalaya by raising environmental and spiritual consciousness in the human species through relevant literatures. Literatures, because that is all I can do. I'm a writer. I'm good with words, and accidentally enough, I happen to be in the publishing industry, so I understand the technical aspects of it as well. I want to put together these tools, the tools that I have acquired over these years, and my love for the mountains, and I want to put them together and provide service to the community in this way. I want to raise environmental consciousness enough that we don't treat the mountains anymore as Facebook trending spots. No, that's not what they are. So that is the concept that I wish to change by bringing out important literatures. That is the aim of Himalayan Scripts. And my volume of poems, which I call Becoming Himalaya, it's in press now. This is a prototype of the book cover. So I won't be delving into the details, but this is one of the initial images that I sketched when I thought of my experiences in the mountains. It was basically me merging with the mountains and experiencing oneness. And very recently, I started meditations on my Himalayan ancestry. So as Vivek mentioned at the starting of the seminar, I had a talk very recently I had a lecture at the Himalayan Institute of Cultural and Heritage Studies, the institute is headed by Dr. Sonali Gupta. And she's a friend of mine. And she asked me, after the session ended, she asked me, so Kanchan, you are a Dhar. My name is Kanchan Dhar, and Dhar, basically the name Dhar has Kashmiri origins. So she asked me, so how do you relate to Kashmir because of your last name? I said, I have no connections to Kashmir other than my name. And immediately after, I felt really stupid about myself because our name is one of our most personal, most intimate identifiers. So Dhars are basically Kashmiri Pandits. And my ancestors had come down to Orissa generations ago. But when I gave it some thought, I came to realize that my ancestors perhaps actually came from the Himalaya. So that means I have blood roots that go to the Himalaya. It was a big deal of realization for me. I started a series of writings called the Wadi series. Wadi means valley, and here I refer to the Kashmir Valley. So this is what I wrote here. I'll read just a part of it. That considering my obsession, my love for the Himalaya, and knowing, now acknowledging full well that I have Kashmiri ancestry, makes me wonder did my ancestors really belong to the peaks there? Even if I wasn't born there, were they? That would mean I have blood roots to the Himalaya. This was a very recent realization and means a lot to me. And a little poem that I wrote here about the Jhelum River. So I guess this is where I stand currently with my connections with the Himalaya, and the presentation ends here, and I tried to present bits of my 9 months there, and yeah, okay, I'll end here, and I hope it was okay and not too tiring.
Yeah, thanks, Kanchan. It was very informative. You covered a lot of ground and told us about a lot of things that you are into and about your challenges and about the future projects. So over to the audience now. Hasib Siddiqui has a query. He can unmute and ask.
Hi Kanchan, this is Hasib Sheikh here from Ahmedabad.
Hi, Hasib.
Something in common with us, our love for Uttaranchal and Uttarakhand. I go there twice a year at least. Because of the lockdown, I haven't been gone. I haven't been going there for a while. It's last November between the two lockdowns that I went there. I go there because I'm a naturalist, I'm a wildlifer, and I often visit the Jim Corbett National Park out there and the vicinity around. So I've been to most of the places that you have been talking about. One of the things I would like to add here about your bad experience at Dehradun, just for the benefit of our audience here, that Uttarakhand is divided into two major ethnic regions, the Kumaon and the Garhwal. Garhwal, most of the western districts are the Garhwal, and most of the 6 eastern districts are Kumaon and 7 western districts are Garhwal. Now, the Kumaonis or the eastern people are more somber, more serene, and very gentle. While Garhwal is a professional site, so I'm not surprised when you had that bad experience, and I'm
Yes.
sure you would agree with me on that
It was
one.
mentally scary. Yes.
Yes. So when you, if the same thing would have happened with you in the Kumaon region, you would have been in a far better position than what you were at Dehradun. So if it would have happened in somewhere in Nainital or somewhere around where you usually go, Tala Ramgarh. Now, my second part of the thing is that Tala Ramgarh is not far from Bhimtal and Nainital or
No.
Julikot or probably Haldwani. So it's all in and around that place. You know, on your next thing, you could as well give some wonderful idea about the. I know this was centered with your experiences and whatever happened there, but in next time it would be great if you can come out with some, a little bit of food and birds and animals, because it is full of wildlife. That area in
Yes.
Kumaon is amazing.
Right.
It's and then you are in the abode of what our my Hindu brothers and sisters always talk about is the abode of gods, and Uttarakhand is abode of God. Another thing was the amazing 5 prayags on the Gadwal side of it. So Dev on all the 5 prayags, if you people go there, when the two rivers meet in get into one, both the colors, there's a shade of difference in the color all the time. So that's one of the beautiful things to see. And being a Muslim, I'm so blessed enough that I've prayed my namaz in all these 5 prayags, right on the confluence of the rivers. So there is some beautiful lovely cultural aspect of our country, the oneness of our country, that is being depicted there. So you brought me closer to what I call my second home, that is Uttarakhand. It's my second home to me, and I have always been going there. And you really made everything come out again. It's only been 8 months that I was there last, and I'm longing to go there. Thank you so much. Wonderful
Thank
presentation.
you so much, Hasib. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, sir, Hasib, and I would say special thanks because you brought your wife also along for this
Yes.
presentation.
I have another small one on this one, that every time I come back from Uttarakhand, I get a beating from her, verbal beating from her, because it's not many times that I've taken her along being on a professional visit for all the inbound foreigners that come to Gujarat. And then I take them down to over to Uttarakhand from there, being a wildlifer, taking them to different national parks of India. So do we go to Corbett. And when I come back with stories of Mukteishwar and Almora and Ranikhet and Nainital, Bhimtal, Sattal, and all those places, she just blast me. She said, "I don't want to see your pictures. I'm not interested unless you take me out there."
So on your next trip, I think you should definitely take her.
Positive only.
हम चलेंगे ना, सुमैया को भी लेके चलेंगे. हम चल रहे हैं.
That's Kanizapa. Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful presentation, Kanchan. Wonderful.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Kanchan, you mentioned Shimla and you mentioned a bookshop. So we do have a participant who is based in Shimla, Bhavya Chauhan. Because when you went there, you said it was locked, nobody was there. So maybe she can find out like why it was locked or whether it's open now. Bhavya, if you are there, can you please unmute and
Am I audible?
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I'm so sorry. My laptop has a few glitches these days, but I because of that I missed bits out of it. But I do remember her mentioning Shimla, and honestly, this presentation sort of opened my eyes also, because sometimes we grow blind to what we see every day. So living in Shimla, I sometimes become very unappreciative of what I have right in front of me. The open skies, the beauty that's always available to me, I sometimes grow blind to it. So sometimes I think it takes an outsider to explore the mountains, and then realize how serene and how amazing it is to be within them. And yeah, I'm so sorry. I don't know the shop you mentioned. Could you repeat?
I think it's called Maria Brothers. It's somewhere on the Mall Road.
I think most tourists, when they come, they look for this historical antique shop, because
Yes.
that person has very exclusive, very expensive maps and old books, sometimes even single editions of several books. But I have also been wondering for a long time why it has been shut, but it has stayed that way for a long time now. So I can only hope that when you come back, it's open again.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it was an amazing presentation. I really, really
Thank you so
enjoyed
much.
it.
Thank you. Thank you, Bhavya.
Thanks, Bhavya. Any other queries from the other participants? Rinu Smita Kakote, she has joined us for the first time. She is from Guwahati. So, Rinu Smita, how was your experience participating in the
I
webinar
I
today?
I really enjoyed it. I didn't expect the travels. I didn't know what the travel series was all about. So I really enjoyed it. And not recently, last year I had done. I had edited a book on based in Haridwar. So it again took me. The book was very nice, and it actually was. So while she was talking about it, I went back to, like, even while editing the book, I a similar experience. And one of my friends stay in Rishikesh. She's based in Rishikesh. She's a yogacharya. She stays there. So the pictures reminded me of the pictures that she sends. Long ago, I had also been like quite a frequent visitor of Uttarakhand. I did treks there. My son has gone on several treks there. So it was not only new information, but also like revisiting a lot of memories and a lot of new old things that were inside me. Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, Hasib, you have.
Yeah, just to add to what Kanchan said, that there's a slight healthy difference, a sporty difference. The Britishers, she's very much right that they were not the ones who found Nainital out. No way. See, as in a culture, Hinduism is far older than anybody could think about. It's one of the oldest religions followed on this planet, oldest faiths. So. The root of the fact being that there were temples, there were people, small hamlets and villages much before the Britishers came. And it was because that the Britishers went down to see them on the top. They said that this place is livable. The lake looked like a shape of a closed eye, so Nayan, that made it Nainital. But there's also a temple named after Nayan. The Naini temples are there. That's where late Jim Corbett buried the fingers of the lady who was eaten up by the tiger. So it's very much that way. There were people living there. Nainital was very much alive and kicking when the Britishers went and settled out there. So if you go down just to add to our knowledge of our viewers, for those who do not know, I'm sure some may know it. So it was not founded by the Britishers, and I, for one, Kanchan, do not have any reference as of now that the Britishers ever claimed that they found it. Basically, we were living up there. Our people were already there, and the Britishers went there and they said, "Wow, we have a nice place to live," and that's how they built it up. Till then, it was small hamlets around. So just adding to that, that's it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hasib. So, anyone else with a query, suggestion, input, feedback, anything, any thoughts?
Just adding something, like in Nainital, once we had stayed in the governor's, I think it was either the governor's house or the circuit house. It was like way on top. You had to take the cable from in front of Naini Lake, and that's a very beautiful place. And when it snows, it's like white all over, and just the cottages there. there is some kind of a adventure thing there, but otherwise it's good just to go and stay there. Just adding that.
Yeah, thanks Renusmita, and thanks Kaniz Razavi also for inviting Ananya. She joined, although she just left. That's how we keep on building the community, and it's basically a family now. And if we had known Kanchan earlier, I don't think she would have faced any problems during the lockdown while she was like holed up in Dehradun. We have so many editorial colleagues
Really?
there,
Oh,
and but I would say that each experience teaches us something, and
yes.
that's how we should look at it. Life is not always a bed of roses. You will have thorns also along the way to shape our personalities and our perspective. And only when we have bad experiences, only then we will appreciate when we have something good. So that it actually balances out in the end. So that's all we have for now. And next Saturday we will have Dipanka Mukherjee from Redomania. Like I haven't received the material from him yet, so I can't tell you what's the title of the session going to be. But he's connected to travel, he's connected to publishing, and he runs a resort by the name of Faraway Rents. It's I think in Uttarakhand only, and like they used to organize some literary festivals there. I think Hasib wants to add something, or has he left? He was like,
Are we meeting tomorrow? I'm sorry to interrupt.
no,
Is there anything?
we don't have any meeting tomorrow.
Okay. Okay.
But like next Saturday we will have the session with Dipanka Mukherjee. And before we end, like any comments from Nirja? Happy to see you. No comments. Okay, happy to see Jayanthan also among the audience. And a big thanks to everyone who attended today's session. See you next Saturday at 4 p.m. And Kanchan will be presenting a clubhouse session tonight. Kanchan, what's the time?
I think it's 9:30. Sonali's
Okay,
clubhouse. Yes.
at 9:30, look out for Sonali's Clubhouse. If you are on Clubhouse, it's an audio app that now there is no invite required, so anyone can sign up and join. So that's all for now. Thanks, Kanchan. Thanks the participants, and have a nice day. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you so much. Thank you.